Welcome back, you beautiful contradictions, you walking paradoxes, you smiling assassins who learn to weaponize kindness. They're still trying to figure you out, aren't they? Still trying to understand how someone so soft could be so lethal, how someone with angel eyes could have demon strategy, how you smiled at them with warmth while simultaneously dismantling their entire game plan 3 moves ahead. They thought your gentleness was weakness, your patience was ignorance, your silence was surrender. But what they failed to realize, what they couldn't possibly comprehend, is that you weren't playing checkers while they played chess. You were playing chess while they were still learning how to spell the word. Let's talk about that smile, shall we? That beautiful, disarming, absolutely devastating smile. They saw it and thought innocent. They saw it and thought harmless. They saw it and thought easy target. They looked at your face and made the fatal mistake of thinking your exterior matched your interior. They thought the softness of your features meant softness in your mind. They thought the light in your eyes meant light in your intentions. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't see, is that smile wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. It was the calm before the storm. It was the silence before the explosion. That smile was you saying, "Go ahead, underestimate me. I dare you." You see, they expected aggression. They were prepared for confrontation. They had their defenses ready for someone who would come at them with fire and fury. But you came with flowers and left them in ruins. You came with kindness and left them confused. You came with grace and left them completely destroyed. Because while they were busy preparing for war, you were busy winning it. While they were sharpening their swords, you were poisoning their water supply. While they were learning the rules, you were rewriting them. And all the while, that smile never faded. That beautiful, terrifying, absolutely lethal smile that said, "I'm 3 timelines ahead of you, and you don't even know the game has started." They thought they were playing against an amateur, but they were playing against a master who'd learned to hide their expertise behind humility. They thought they were facing someone naive, but they were facing someone who'd weaponized their own underestimation. You let them think you didn't understand the game. You let them believe you were too kind to play dirty. You let them assume your morals would be your downfall. And that's exactly how you won. Because while they were busy monologuing about their superiority, you were quietly capturing their queen. While they were celebrating moves they thought were brilliant, you were setting traps they wouldn't see until it was far too late. You played the long game while they were focused on instant gratification. You sacrificed pawns they thought were victories while protecting the pieces that actually mattered. And here's the part that breaks them the most. You never changed your expression. You never showed your hand. You never let them see the calculation behind those gentle eyes. You smiled through every move, every counter, every devastating play that left them scrambling. They kept waiting for you to show your true colors, but your true color was always this: a player so advanced they made mastery look like mercy. A strategist so skilled they made warfare look like kindness. A mind so sharp it could cut through their ego without them even feeling the blade, until they were already bleeding out on the board. Remember when they first saw you? Remember that moment when they looked at you and thought they had you figured out in 3 seconds flat? They saw the warmth in your presence and cataloged you as soft. They heard the gentleness in your voice and filed you under pushover. They witnessed your patience and labeled you passive. They made a fundamental error that would cost them everything. They confused your choice not to engage with an inability to compete. They mistook your strategic silence for confusion. They interpreted your careful observation as hesitation. But you were doing something they couldn't comprehend. You were studying them like a scientist studies bacteria under a microscope, cataloging every weakness, noting every pattern, memorizing every tell. While they were busy talking, you were listening. While they were busy showing off, you were learning. While they were busy celebrating their perceived dominance, you were building a complete psychological profile of every single one of them. You knew how they thought before they thought it. You could predict their moves before they made them. You understood their motivations better than they understood themselves. And all of this knowledge, all of this insight, all of this devastating awareness, you kept hidden behind that smile. That patient, understanding, completely disarming smile that made them feel safe while you were constructing their downfall, piece by piece, move by move, breath by breath. They made jokes about you, didn't they? Behind your back they laughed. To your face they patronized. They treated you like a child who'd stumbled into an adult conversation. They explained things you already understood better than they ever would. They offered advice you'd already surpassed years ago, and you let them. You let them feel superior. You let them believe their own hype. You let them think they were the smartest person in the room while you were quietly becoming the most dangerous. Because you understood something they never would. Real power doesn't announce itself. True intelligence doesn't need validation. Actual mastery doesn't require an audience. You played dumb while getting smarter. You played weak while getting stronger. You played lost while mapping every single exit, entrance, and trapdoor in their entire operation. The beautiful irony is they thought they were teaching you the game, but you were teaching them a lesson they'd never forget. Every time they explained something condescendingly, you were learning their blind spots. Every time they underestimated your intelligence, you were cataloging their arrogance as a weakness to exploit later. Every time they dismissed your input, you were noting exactly which pieces of information they valued and which they ignored, giving you a perfect blueprint of where their defenses were strongest, and more importantly, where they were laughably weak. You turned their ego into your weapon. You transformed their pride into your ammunition. You weaponized their certainty that they were better than you, and that weapon would eventually destroy them completely. And here's what really gets them, what really keeps them up at night trying to figure out where it all went wrong. You were never playing their game. You were never following their rules. You were never even on their board. While they thought you were struggling to keep up, you were building an entirely new game they didn't even know existed. While they were celebrating winning battles, you were ending the war. While they were focused on capturing your pieces, you'd already captured something far more valuable. Their trust, their confidence, their complete and utter certainty that they knew who you were. And when you finally made your move, when you finally showed them what you'd been building this entire time, the shock on their faces was worth every second of being underestimated. The confusion in their eyes when they realized they'd been playing checkers against someone who'd been orchestrating a military campaign was the sweetest victory you'd ever tasted. Let's talk about what was happening behind that smile, shall we? Because while your face showed kindness, your mind was running calculations that would make quantum computers jealous. Every conversation was data collection. Every interaction was reconnaissance. Every seemingly casual question was strategic intelligence gathering, disguised as friendly curiosity. They thought you were making small talk, but you were building psychological dossiers. They thought you were being polite, but you were identifying pressure points. They thought you were just naturally curious, but you were mapping their entire mental architecture, finding every crack, every weakness, every point of structural failure that you could exploit when the time was right. You listened to their stories and learned their fears. You watched their reactions and discovered their triggers. You noted who they respected, who they dismissed, who they loved, who they hated, and most importantly, who they underestimated. Besides you, you cataloged their speech patterns to predict their thinking patterns. You studied their body language to understand their unspoken truths. You paid attention to what they didn't say, because the silences told you more than their words ever could. And all of this information, this massive database of human behavior and psychological vulnerability, you processed in real time while maintaining that gentle, harmless, absolutely devastating smile that kept them completely off guard. They never suspected a thing, because you'd mastered the art of looking exactly how they wanted you to look. When they needed someone soft, you appeared soft. When they needed someone confused, you appeared confused. When they needed someone to dismiss, you gave them every reason to dismiss you. You became a mirror reflecting back exactly what would make them most comfortable, most confident, most catastrophically wrong about who they were dealing with. You studied their egos like a mechanic studies an engine, learning exactly which parts needed stroking, which needed challenging, which needed ignoring to keep the machine running exactly how you needed it to run. And here's the genius of your approach. You never once lied. You never once pretended to be something you weren't. You simply allowed them to make assumptions while you strategically chose which parts of yourself to reveal and which to keep hidden. You let them see your kindness, but not your strategy. You showed them your patience, but not your calculation. You displayed your gentleness, but concealed your ruthlessness. You were always exactly who you were, but you controlled the narrative of their perception so masterfully, they thought they knew you when they'd only seen the tip of an iceberg that could sink their entire fleet. The calculation never stopped. Even in moments of genuine connection, even in times of real vulnerability, even when you actually cared about them, there was always a part of your mind running the numbers, adjusting the strategy, preparing for contingencies, not because you're cold, but because you learn the hard way that the world doesn't reward naivety. You learn that kindness without awareness is weak. You learned that trust without verification is stupidity. So you became someone who could be genuinely warm while simultaneously being strategically brilliant. Someone who could care about people while also being prepared for them to betray you. Someone who could smile with real affection while keeping 3 backup plans in your pocket, just in case that affection wasn't returned with equal loyalty. Now we arrive at the beautiful part. The moment when all that patience, all that observation, all that strategic silence starts paying dividends they never saw coming. You'd been building this trap for months, maybe years, and they walked into it thinking it was a garden party. Every piece was positioned perfectly. Every escape route was covered. Every contingency was planned for. And they had absolutely no idea they were already captured, already defeated, already finished. They were still making moves thinking they were winning while you'd already declared checkmate 3 different ways they hadn't noticed yet. You gave them exactly what they wanted. If they needed to feel superior, you gave them opportunities to feel superior. If they needed to feel intelligent, you asked questions that let them explain things. If they needed to feel powerful, you showed deference. that fed their ego until it was so bloated they could barely see past it. You turned their desires into chains. You transformed their needs into traps. You weaponized their hunger for validation and used it to lead them exactly where you needed them to be. And the entire time, that smile never wavered. That gentle, patient, absolutely lethal smile that said, "Keep going. You're doing exactly what I need you to do." The beauty of your trap is it didn't look like a trap. It looked like weakness. It looked like opportunity. It looked like an easy win. So they rushed in without checking for wires, without testing the ground, without questioning why someone who seemed so harmless was suddenly so accessible. They were so focused on what they thought they were taking from you that they never noticed what you were taking from them. Their time, their resources, their attention, their trust, their secrets, their power. You were redistributing everything they had while they were busy thinking they were exploiting you. You were dismantling their entire operation while they were celebrating what they thought was your downfall. And here's where your genius really shows. You didn't just trap them, you made them trap themselves. Every move they made to exploit you was actually a move that strengthened your position. Every attempt to manipulate you was actually them walking deeper into your manipulation. Every time they thought they were playing you, they were actually playing themselves. You turned their own strategy against them so completely they're still trying to figure out where their plan ended and yours began. You made them feel like puppet masters while you held every single string, and they pulled themselves into knots, thinking they were pulling yours. The timing was perfect because you'd been patient enough to wait for the exact right moment, not too early when they might still be cautious, not too late when they might have moved on. You waited until they were completely committed, completely invested, completely convinced of their superiority. You waited until their guard was at its lowest, because their confidence was at its highest. You waited until they'd bet everything on you being who they thought you were. And then, and only then, did you start showing them who you actually are. Not all at once. That would be too merciful. Slowly, gradually, with that same patient smile, you began revealing that the angel they thought they knew had always been playing chess while they were still trying to figure out which piece was the king. The moment they realized what you'd done, that moment when the pieces finally clicked into place and they understood they'd been outplayed from the very beginning, that's the moment they'll remember for the rest of their lives. You watched their faces shift from confusion to recognition to horror to respect to fear, all in the span of seconds. You saw the exact instant when their perception of you shattered and reformed into something they should have seen all along. You witnessed their reality cracking as they understood that every assumption they'd made was wrong. Every conclusion they'd drawn was manipulated. Every victory they'd celebrated was actually a step deeper into your strategy. They went back through every interaction in their minds, didn't they? Replaying conversations with new understanding, seeing the game within the game, recognizing the traps they'd walked into while thinking they were setting them. Every kind word you'd spoken suddenly had layers they hadn't considered. Every gentle suggestion suddenly looked like strategic positioning. Every moment of apparent vulnerability suddenly revealed itself as calculated exposure that got them exactly where you needed them. A 9, a kid, and all just results. All just makes. They're all just miss. They realized you hadn't been reacting to their moves, you'd been directing them. You hadn't been playing defense, you'd been conducting an orchestra. and every note they'd played, even the ones they thought were improvised, had been written in your score from the beginning. The questions started pouring out. How long were you planning this? Longer than you think. When did you know? Probably before you even introduced yourself. Was any of it real? The parts that mattered were, but you'll never know which parts those were. Why didn't I see this coming? Because you were too busy looking down at me to notice I was looking right through you. The interrogation in their eyes was desperate, trying to salvage some sense of control, some piece of ego, some shred of the narrative where they were still the intelligent ones and you were still the naive one they'd believed in. But that narrative was gone, burned, completely